This is probably not a hot take, but Belegar is by far the most Chad of the Dwarf Lords, in my humble opinion, being that he has this just fantastic kind of dress piece here on his back, two horns on his helmet, hammer in his hand, a big old shield on his other arm, and he is just ready to rumble. This replay from Cool Umbrella. It's the tournament game against Tretch from the ODM clan, so it should be very interesting, and we're in for a I was going to say an Old West style shootout, but something a little bit predating that, considering both of these are bow-based factions to a degree. Dwarfs, of course, coming in with lots of crossbows. Bugman's Rangers have regeneration, and shields makes them pretty good at a ranged exchange. Got some regular Rangers as well, with some miners with blasting charges. Up front, Warriors with Dragonfire Pass, and Longbeards with regular Dwarf Warriors as well. So lots and lots of shields, blasting charges for a bit of burst, and lots of crossbows. One rogue gyro brimstone as well. For the other side, Sisters of Twilight going to be leading the way for the Wood Elves. Got some Way Watchers up front with plenty of Starfire shafts protected by War Dancers, and a Spell Singer of Life with a single Glade Rider for some light cavalry. And immediately you can see just a couple of volleys and those brimstones are routed off. They do have all their models intact though, so they might come back and contribute a little bit, but certainly their combat effectiveness has been greatly reduced immediately after the start of the battle. Bugman's Rangers are going to take a volley there. They didn't drop too many models though, so you can see their health regenerating at a reasonable rate, but oh, that burst damage from the Wood Elves. Oh man, that archer fire, just concentrated arrows scything in here. Brutal armor piercing damage, of course, from both the Starfires and the Way Watchers more than anything. And individual dwarf units are going to find themselves very much at risk, as Tretch does a good job of focus firing on individual targets. Beautiful scything breath attack from the side there. Not full square on the side, but still does a lot of damage and critically actually kills the models of those Bugman's Rangers. You can see the sisters there switching to their anti-infantry multi-shot mode. Definitely going to be the right call here to try and thin out some of these numbers, but Bugman's, even if they've lost a significant amount of models, will still be able to generate a good amount of HP left, so if left unattended to, they can definitely come back in this fight. But for the initial phase here, the Wood Elves are trading very well, it has to be said. The Way Watchers dumping quite a bit of their ammunition, taking relatively little damage in return, and already having routed off multiple units of Bugman's. We've got 3 that have already been routed off and come back. The Glade Riders trying their chances out on the flanks here, get quickly repelled by the Dwarven infantry. The rest are just going to set up to continue firing back. Of course, the Quarrelers mixed in here as well. Classically heavily armored dwarfs will do a little bit better, although again, mostly armor-piercing damage from those bows, but there is some non-AP component, which will, oh man, until that breath attack comes in and just kills half the unit, it will help them out somewhat in that situation, but Wood Elves absolutely winning this ranged exchange for the time being. A few Dwarf Warriors bravely push forward alongside some Longbeards, and they're going to get intercepted by the Blade Singers and War Dancers in reserve here. It's a brutal close-range fire as well from the Starfire Shafts, and the Way Watchers should help finish off this overextended Dwarf Infantry fairly quickly. Longbeards on the other side will have a little bit of a better time. They're just against War Dancers, who now has some flesh to stone to give them some extra melee defense. And they're also in the woods, which will protect them from a little bit of these arrows, but still they are taking some significant damage there. But we've got Rangers here, one Bugman's completely healthy, other Bugman's in the back just kind of chilling and regenerating some HP. Will be able to come back and contribute, although they've lost more than half their unit models on all 3 of these, which is definitely a problem. Will significantly reduce the amount of damage they're able to put out over the course of a game, but still, it is not insignificant. So, must be said that the Dwarfs doing a little bit of an overextension again here, arguably. These miners just getting absolutely peppered. They are using a lot of the ammunition here of all these Dwarven bow units, and critically, Belegar is taking no damage whatsoever, and all the Dwarfs, all the Wood Elves' ammunition is being used to take out the Dwarven infantry, and rightfully so, but it does mean that, especially the Way Watchers, Belegar in the late game, I mean, if we look at his stats here, HP-wise, almost 6,000, not that much lower than the Sisters of Twilight, and his absolute Chad stats of 60 attack and 60 defense make him a formidable threat for the sisters to actually fight in melee, in the late game especially. But right now, Cool Umbrella does need to get a bit more damage on the Sisters of Twilight. I'm not sure, especially with all this Elven support left. Belegar obviously would have a little bit of a tough time, but we do have War's Dragonfire Pass, a few more shielded infantry here, Longbeards, and more Dwarf Warriors pushing forward and absorbing more and more of the arrows of these Way Watchers and other units. Cool Umbrella definitely grateful that alongside the Chaos Dwarfs, Order Dwarfs did have their shields buffed to be the 55% missile block chance, which has been a long-running request of people throughout the community in both campaign and multiplayer side. At least Dwarf stands. There are probably some Dwarf haters who absolutely hated the change, but I think it was always appropriate and probably should have been that way from the start of Warhammer 1, to be honest, but I'm not the person making these decisions. Anyway, Brimstone Gun's going to come back in and go for an MLG bombing run here. Just try and get whatever they can out. One gyro actually goes down into the middle of those Way Watchers. That was pretty cool. I think it probably does damage when it lands on units, but then they immediately shatter and just go flying off the field. But hey, at least they got their bombing run in, managed to get a tiny little bit of value back. Not really enough to pay for themselves, but still. Sisters are also being pretty aggressive now, cycle charging and using lots of their ammunition to shoot point blank, blast away those Dwarven ranged units. But like this, Bugman's here is absolute heroes. Still has 62 models online, plenty of ability to regenerate HP. You see they just took that full volley there, only lost 2 models, well, a few more now. Another brutal breath attack straight on the side there. Unfortunately, doesn't actually get great contact because the miners are on the move. But where's Dragonfire Pass pushing through now? We've got miners throwing at least a small amount of charges, still enough to do a pretty brutal amount of damage to those Blade Singers. Not to mention Bugman's sitting off at far range, kind of picking away at that high-value infantry with their bows. Interesting to not see any Slayers here. And I kind of get why you wouldn't take Slayers, even though it is somewhat risky to not have any of that anti-large component. They are quite vulnerable to missiles, similar to how the Blade Singers are here, and they are starting to feel that effect as the Blade Singers and the War Dancers both start to take damage. Cool Umbrella is able to respond with his own crossbow units coming back, and the Wood Elf bows are pretty far back, kind of focusing whatever threats come in close and threaten them, whereas Cool Umbrella has a little bit more of an initiative right now. He's the one actually pushing forward, so he can kind of keep his ranged units more or less out of range of the Wood Elf ranged units, and just pepper in at their own forward melee positions. So pretty good stuff there. See, speaking of which, Sisters of Twilight are going to find themselves in just such a situation as they fight it out with some Bugman's Rangers and Dwarf Warriors in melee. Some more Bugmans out in the distance there, and Corlers and whatnot, no doubt, firing in here and getting some really nice damage. Yeah, we've got Rangers and Bugmans there. And the Sisters do take pretty significant damage. Like I said, don't have the most HP in the world. And, yeah, only 60 armor, a little bit of physical resistance. It's quite a bit. It helps some. Missile resistance as well. 45% total mitigation of those crossbow bolts, but still, every little bit helps, and the Sisters do take significant damage over time there. Gonna get a little bit of healing as they kind of awkwardly land directly on those Longbeards. But of course, the Chad, the true Chad of all, this battle is still just sitting in the middle of the field, just watching it unfold, basically. Just daring the Wood Elves to even get close to him. His time will certainly come, but for the time being, his troops will be the ones doing the lifting here as they try and finish off Wood Elf support. Longbeards and Dwarf Warriors continuing to press their advance. Try and get in close with these Wood Elf archers. Kill as many as they can. But continuously being pushed back, but at the same time pushing the Wood Elves back. They've managed to force them into quite a position here. Yeah, somewhat up against the map. Not necessarily right on the edge of the white line, but definitely starting to feel that pressure a little bit there. And look at this firing line. Still all these Bugmans. 1, 2, 3, 4 Bugmans still online. Or I guess 3 Bugmans and a regular Ranger. Some of them actually getting not necessarily close to their healing cap, but closer to their healing cap, and that's a big reason why you bring Bugmans in this matchup. Definitely a specialist situation for them. And they also have charge defense against large, so just in case you guys are new to the game and you're not aware, Bugman's Rangers are like the most of any skirmish unit for the Dwarfs. They've got stock, vanguard, charge defense against large, immune to psychology, self-healing, and pretty decent melee stats. I mean, nothing crazy to write home about, especially given the cost, but considering they've got everything else going for them as well, it is quite a potent unit, especially in a situation like this in the late game, trying to carry. Got some Elven light cavalry charging in, really not doing all that much to them. That 39 melee defense, charge defense means they can push back the Blade Riders there with little issue. And in these kind of tattered endgame engagements, they just have a tendency to just stick around, continue fighting it out. So let's see how they can do. Oof, I don't know what happened there. I do see Belegar chasing that Spellsinger, though, so it must have been a bad time for the Wood Elves. Meanwhile, we got Miners and Dwarf Warriors pressuring Wood Elf Archers away from this area where they've got Blade Singers left still and some Way Watchers, Sisters of Twilight. It's a nice separation created so that these archer units can't really support them effectively. But we're going to drop a little bit of a fast forward as this endgame does take some time. Both sides trying to clean up their respective areas of the battlefield and finish off routing and tattered enemy troops. Both sides will pursue such a course of action for the time being. Meanwhile, Sisters of Twilight come forward. They're going to combine with some regrouped War Dancers to try and finish off these Bugmans. Just getting absolutely hammered, and they do, in fact, rout them off. But the rest are just continuing to make a cohesive push against Wood Elf Archer lines. So let's pop back into fast forward and watch that unfold here. Blade Singers are going to come in on the side. And some of these Glade Guards actually being used in melee as they're out of ammunition. Finally, though, Belegar here is going to get his hammer wet with elven blood, start to smack some skulls here. And he will take some damage, of course, from the ranged units that remain. But the Wood Elves pretty quickly are figuring out that they really don't have much ammunition left at all. The best hope is these Way Watchers with 5 volleys left, which is a pretty considerable amount of damage. Still only 33 models, though, so just barely over half. And, like, that MLG tree block right there was absolutely clutch, using the Durthu tactic against the Wood Elves, of course, and this incredibly low poly thing, whatever that is. Let's not look at that too much, but Belegar mitigating quite a bit of that damage that would be coming his way, wasting the Wood Elves' precious arrows as he pursues just of Twilight through the woods here. The War Dancers try and get in contact with the Bugmans, but the Bugmans are able to hold their line. And look at this. I love the counter charge here. Full Umbrella actually switching the Bugmans into melee mode and just countercharging the Eternal Guards, or Blade Guards, rather. So it's quite the scrap of Elves and Dwarves in the woods here. Just a desperate, brutal battle at this point to try and win victory. But Belegar is in prime position to just literally carry this entire thing. He's taken no damage whatsoever. The Sisters of Twilight have taken fairly significant damage. He himself is just an absolute chat of combat. There's really no ammunition left for the Wood Elves to shoot him, so we'll fast forward again as Belegar makes his stand. He's going to fairly easily withstand the cycle charge. I mean, I think he even has expert charge defense. Yeah, he even withstands the charge of infantry units. He's that good. He will take some damage from the Way Watchers. Kind of shows a little bit of how, if the Way Watchers had connected with those other volleys, Belegar might actually be in a little bit of trouble here. Since they did not, he is not. He will carry the game, as you would imagine. Sorry to spoil it for you, but I'm sorry. No, I'm actually not sorry. Belegar's such a Chad. I'm not even sorry. So, very cool win there. Absolutely love that. Belegar plus Bugman's Rangers is a easy way to get my heart won over to your side. So, very well done to Cool Umbrella there. Yeah, all the Bugmans get some really good value back. So, despite taking all that damage, Tretch focusing a lot of resources on them, they were still able to pay for themselves. That's why you bring them here. Even the regular Rangers and the Quarrelers, too, though, are still quite good. That shielded counterattack for ranged units is just so strong here. And the Dwarven melee infantry also contribute reasonably well, help absorb a lot of that missile fire. And then the Miners also, a couple of high-value hits there, but mostly getting decked by archers as well. For Tretch, of course, no surprises. All these ranged units, I would imagine, are going to get just really nice value. The War Dancers, or sorry, Blade Singers also do a great job. War Dancers themselves, actually pretty decent also. One of them does manage to pay for themselves. I mean, ultimately, it ends up being a pretty close battle. It really just comes down to Belegar being such a Chad because the armies pretty much killed each other. So there you go. Hopefully you guys enjoyed that. If you do like this sort of content, be sure to like, subscribe, hit that bell notification button. Every time I upload a new video, you'll be notified. Thanks again. We'll see you next time.